Hi everyone, my name is Katz and I'm a bankruptcy attorney here in Los Angeles, California. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what is the difference between a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. There's three common types of bankruptcies that are usually filed by individuals in California. The first bankruptcy is a Chapter 7. The second type of bankruptcy is a Chapter 13. And the third type of bankruptcy is a Chapter 11. In this video, I'm only going to talk about the most common two types of bankruptcies, which is a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. So let's talk about the Chapter 7. A Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a liquidation bankruptcy. In other words, the goal of that bankruptcy or that type of bankruptcy is to eliminate debt. Individuals that file Chapter 7 bankruptcies are usually those with credit card debt or medical debt or any kind of debt that's not secured. In other words, we're not talking about mortgages and we're not talking about car debts where you in a risk of repossession. Here we're simply talking about debts that can be wiped out. As I said, it's like credit card debts. So if you have a ton of credit card debts, you're probably going to be looking at filing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. In order to qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you need to make less than the median income. So what happens is you have to take a look at how many individuals live in your household and then compare your income to the median income in your area. That's a calculation that's usually done with the help of an attorney. Now, if you can qualify for the bankruptcy under the income category, then the next question is whether you have any assets. So if you have a lot of credit card debt, but you also own a home with a lot of equity in it, then you may not qualify for a bankruptcy, or you may not want to file a bankruptcy because it puts you at risk of losing your home. So even though a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is often the best type of bankruptcy because you eliminate debts completely, you may not be able to qualify it if, again, you have too much income or if you have assets that have a lot of equity in them. Now let's go to a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy is not a liquidation bankruptcy, it's a reorganization bankruptcy. So in other words, while you can usually eliminate some debt or potentially some portion of your debt, you're not eliminating all of your debt. So usually individuals that tend to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy are those that are behind on their mortgage or behind on their car payments and they want to pay those debts back. So what they do is you file what's called a plan, and subject to approval by the court, that plan will indicate that you're going to be paying some of your debt back over time. Now, one difference that's very important between a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is much quicker. Usually Chapter 7 bankruptcy is resolved in about 4.5 months, and then you get what's called a discharge, and then all of your debts are eliminated. Quite contrary to that, Chapter 13 can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So for 3 to 5 years, what you're going to have to do in a Chapter 13 is you're going to have to make payments every month that will go towards your debts. As you can see, it's a much longer bankruptcy. The other point of difference between the Chapter 7 bankruptcy and the Chapter 13 bankruptcy is the cost. A Chapter 7 bankruptcy is normally a third or a fourth of the cost of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And the reason for that is that a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is much quicker and requires less work by an attorney. Now, we talked about qualifying for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but we didn't talk about the qualification for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, in order to be qualified, you have to be an individual. In other words, businesses cannot file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The other requirement under the bankruptcy code is that someone must have a regular income. So if you're unemployed and you're not generating any income every month, then you may not be qualified for a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and then you'll have to go back to having to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That's a determination that you have to make along with an attorney. Do you have enough income to propose and plan and pay your creditors over time? If you don't, again, you will resort back to having to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy if you qualify. So one question that I often get about a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is how much will I have to pay my creditors? We know that in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you often don't have to pay anything. But in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, since you have a payment plan, you will have to pay it. So to answer that question, we first have to look as to what kind of reason you have for filing a Chapter 13. So if you filed a Chapter 13 bankruptcy because you had too much equity in an asset, like if you had too much equity in your home, then that could help determine whether and how much you would have to pay your creditors in a Chapter 13. So let me simplify it. So if you have a house with $2 million in equity, you're obviously not going to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You're going to resort to a Chapter 13. But because you have so much equity, you may have to pay all of your creditors in full through the bankruptcy. On the other hand, if you don't have assets with a lot of equity in them and your income is not significant, what we do is we normally take your disposable income. Your disposable income is your income less the expenses, then that's what's left over to contribute towards the plan. And depending on how much disposable income you have will determine how much of a percentage you will pay your creditors. Now, when I talk about percentage pays to creditors, those are creditors like credit card creditors or medical debts or anything of that sort. As explained in the beginning of the video, mortgage creditors or finance, when you have car financing, you will have to pay those in full through the plan in order to keep those assets. So if you want to stay in your home, you don't want to lose your home in a bankruptcy, you will need to make ongoing mortgage payments while at the same time paying back all of the payments that you were behind when you filed the bankruptcy. So again, this is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It's a little bit more complicated than a Chapter 7, but it's usually intended to help individuals who have too many assets, or if they just can't qualify because of the income level for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, they'll choose to file a Chapter 13. So if you have any more questions or you want to speak to an attorney about your case, give us a call at 310-444-9444 or visit our website at www.bankruptcyfirm.net, and we'll be happy to take a look at your case and see which of these bankruptcies, if any, you qualify for. Thank you for watching the video, and please click subscribe now.